alone.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Secretary of State's statement, but can I ask her, with all sincerity, as per her statement, how she intends to have serious, constructive dialogue built on respect and rules with a man who wants to drop peace and go to war simply because he didn't win a prize?
Well, we have a long-standing NATO alliance, a long-standing partnership, not just with the US, but also with Western Europe. We continue to discuss with the US issues affecting peace around the world. For example, I would give him the example of Sudan, which I think has not had the level of international attention that it needs, but where the US are putting in considerable efforts to seek to get a ceasefire in Sudan, and the UK is working with not just the US but other members of the Quad in order to support a desperately needed ceasefire.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And last week I was delighted to lead a debate on the very topic of the High North and Arctic security, highlighting that the UK, because of our geography, should be considered a frontline nation in the ongoing war with Vladimir Putin, and that we cannot afford to sleepwalk unprepared into a geopolitical High North and Arctic. Does she agree with me that as a frontline nation we must urgently increase public awareness of the threat we face and the effect that will have on our constituents? And will she discuss with the Defence Secretary and our allies the possibility of urgently increasing the capability of the Joint Expeditionary Force to defend both the UK and our High North allies, something I know will be welcomed in countries like Estonia, whom I visited at the start of the year?
Foreign Secretary. I thank the honourable member for his question. One of the things that by increasing our presence in the north of Norway, increasing the number of Marines from 1,000 to 2,000 over the space of 3 years, that also helps support the Joint Expeditionary Force and is a crucial part of our cooperation across not just the Arctic but also the Baltic as well, and that work was welcomed both in Finland and Norway, where I was last week.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. President Trump has stated that he no longer feels an obligation to think purely of peace. He has threatened a trade war with the UK and Europe, and he has refused to roll out military force against Greenland. This shows that President Trump and his administration cannot be trusted. Will the government therefore consider a review into the UK's intelligence sharing with the US at this very dangerous and volatile time and until Trump is in power?
Let me just be really clear with the honourable member. Our Five Eyes intelligence and security partnership is vital and keeps us safe. It keeps us safe every single day of the week, every single day of the year. And that is vital. It's particularly close with the United States, but also with Canada, Australia and New Zealand as well. And our security depends on sustaining and continuing that Five Eyes partnership.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister for the clarity they've given today on the future of Greenland. Does the Foreign Secretary agree with me that while recent comments from the United States have generated understandable concern, the correct response is not panic or escalation, but calm diplomacy grounded in the clear, simple principle that Greenland's future is a matter for the Greenlandic people? And secondly, does she agree that the real strategic challenge in the High North remains Russia and its militarisation and aggression, which NATO must continue to confront together as partners of, and not opponents of, the United States?
I do agree with my honourable friend. We need to be purposeful in our response, and also that for all of us to recognise that the greatest threat to the UK's security and to the European security and also to North American security does come from Russia, and we have shared alliances. The US is a close partner in strengthening our security against Russia.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with the sanctity of territorial integrity and how fundamental it is to sovereignty. And indeed, those are the principles which provide a powerful basis to challenge the US's posturing. I do not at all dissent from the Foreign Secretary's statement, but I am intrigued as to how this government is properly so exercised about America's disrespect for territorial integrity of Greenland, but is so disinterested in the disrespect of the territorial integrity of our own country, whereby the European Union imposes colony-like its laws in 300 areas of law on a part of this United Kingdom and insists on an international customs border to partition this United Kingdom. Now that the government has got hold of the importance of territorial integrity, can we look forward to them reasserting it in respect of our own country?
Well, I would just say, I know the honourable member's views, but the Windsor Framework was about sustaining the Good Friday Agreement. That was a shared agreement underpinned by principles and underpinned by peace.
Frank McNally.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to the Foreign Secretary for her statement, as well as the Government's commitment to Arctic security and the recognition of the threats that we face. Does my right honourable friend agree that the partnership with Norway, which includes the £10 billion contract for Type 26 frigates secured by this Government and set to be delivered on the Clyde, including by some of my constituents, makes clear that beyond the rhetoric we are hearing at present, the Government is absolutely committed to playing its part within NATO to uphold our collective global responsibilities?
My honourable friend is right to welcome the £10 billion contract that supports thousands of jobs, not just in his constituency and across the UK, but is also driven not just by the strengths of our defence industry, but crucially by the strengths of our joint cooperation with Norway and the shared operations we will be able to take forward in future.
Caroline Voden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Foreign Secretary's statement and her commitment to Greenland, which is not for sale. President Trump's threat of tariffs is an alarming escalation and strange behaviour from someone who the Foreign Secretary describes as a close ally. Now, France and Germany have suggested imposing retaliatory tariffs, but our Prime Minister has dismissed this. He says he doesn't want to start a trade war with the US. So could the Foreign Secretary tell the House which side the UK will be on if our European friends and neighbours decide to pursue this retaliatory course of action?
Well, we've always been clear that to have a trade war between any nation, certainly between the US and European countries, but between any nations across the world, is deeply damaging and is certainly not in anyone's interest. And that is why our first priority right now should be to prevent this happening and to prevent the tariffs going forward and to build a shared sense of security.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Does my right honourable friend agree that we should send a message